So, the other night, Resident Evil 8 was announced for May 7th or May 17th. May 17th, I believe. 2021 release. Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil 8. And they had this big event, big showcase, describing the upcoming features, what the game's going to be like. They included gameplay. And then they released a visual showcase. Now, a visual showcase I take as different from a demo. A visual showcase just really showing you what the game looks like and feels like. Wasn't exactly a gameplay portion. So I'm not going to be too harsh on it. I have not played it myself. I did just watch someone else play it. It was about, what, 10 minutes long? Maybe 20, 25 if you take your time. And I have to be extremely honest with myself about this. I'm not cynical. I'm not a cynical... I don't like to be cynical. But I am someone who goes off of history. And I am someone who pays attention to finer details in stuff I like. You know, you might be laughing because I'm like that. I'm the opposite with a lot of other things. You know, you see me play a million games here on stream, and you think, oh, this guy doesn't pay attention to anything. But when I like something, I pay attention. And I gotta really be honest, coming off of Remake 2, coming off of Remake 3, and seeing the footage of Resi 8, I think Capcom are milking the Resident Evil series so strongly right now that the series is losing its individualism between each title and its uniqueness as a video game. I also think that the more time passes, the more Resident Evil 2 Remake feels like a fluke, like a one-off, almost accidental creation. It being a pure survival horror. Now, while it's not canon in lore because it's just some weird retelling filled with plot holes, gameplay-wise, I've always felt that Remake 2 is a tougher game than the original RE2. Now, I like the original RE2 gameplay more, but Remake 2 is a fantastic game. It is a real survival horror with a little bit on the easy side with notifications popping up on screen and the puzzles kind of being brain dead. But for what we get these days as far as survival horror goes, third person survival horror, this is all we got. This is all we got. Since the PS2 days, this is the best we get these days. So, I'm not entirely happy with the way the franchise has gone. I think Resident Evil Remake 3 is, I've talked about it so many times. I think it's not only a bad Resident Evil, but a shockingly awful video game. My first playthrough, I said it's a bad Resident Evil, but a good game. After replaying it 3 or 4 more times, especially on higher difficulties, I think it's one of the worst games I've played in the last decade. It is beyond awful. Now, I haven't replayed Resident Evil 6 in 7 years, so we'll see how I feel about that when I get to it. But between 6 and Remake 3 is the worst Resi games. So, yeah, I feel Resident Evil is looking very generic and bland right now. And more of a product to Capcom than they are games or fun creations. The Resident Evil event we watched that introduced 8, they spent half that time talking about pre-order bonuses and tie-in video game PvPs that just use the assets of the main games. And they're throwing everything they can at the wall with those PvP games in an attempt to steal some of the Fortnite fan base and all these other online juggernauts for money. And they're using the Resident Evil brand for that, and it just comes across as Resident Evil losing its value in the sight, in the eyes of Capcom, as an art, as a game, as something to create for fans to make, for fun, and more along the lines of what can we use the name Resident Evil in to make money and a quick buck. Now, people keep talking here in the chat. Hey Chris, what do you think about Resident Evil Remake 4? After seeing the showcase there, where they bring back the Resident Evil 4 box, this to me is a complete confirmation that REmake 4 is coming out. Because what they're doing is they are making one UI, one type of enemy AI, and they are running it to the ground with as many games as possible. So I honestly feel Resident Evil 8 is as much a setup for Remake 4 as it is a video game. I think if Resident Evil Remake 4 wasn't getting developed, Resident Evil 8 wouldn't be made the way it is. It wouldn't be set in a village. It wouldn't have some of the assets scattered around. A cart that a horse carries, or an old house looking the way it does, or straw bales of hay, stuff like that. Things they won't be able to reuse in Remake 4. So they decided, okay, we'll make Resident Evil 8 in a village, and then we'll copy those assets over to Remake 4 and make as much money with as little effort as possible. Now, Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 use a lot of the same assets. So you're thinking, hey, what's going on there, Chris? You love those games. Totally true. But the difference is, those games were high quality and felt like it. Resident Evil 1 felt like a game changer, because it was. Resident Evil 2 to this day is one of my most replayed games, and one of the most replayed games as far as survival horror games go. And Resident Evil 3 was criticized for its reused assets when it originally came out, and for its stale zombie inclusion. People were bored of zombies back then. As much as people go, oh, Resident Evil isn't Resident Evil without zombies. No, back then you lied, because you didn't buy Resident Evil 3 when it came out. It had low sales because people were bored of that formula. Even though Resident Evil 3 has more survival horror elements, in my opinion, than Resident Evil 2. Has not only a bunch more puzzles, but it's a lot more RNG heavy, meaning replay value is really high. And if you fight Nemesis every encounter, you're getting all sorts of upgrades. So there's a lot about Resident Evil 3 that I find amazing, and it's like my second favorite, if not my favorite Resident Evil. But yes, they reused assets, but Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 are very different games. Everything after Remake 2 feels like a downgrade. And from me saying that, when Remake 2 came out, a lot of people were complaining about the reused assets from Resident Evil 7 in Remake 2. I have yet to play Resident Evil 7. So, get back to me in 6 months and I might go, yeah, Remake 2 loses points with me because I'm looking at the paintings on the wall and that's Remake 7. Or, sorry, Resi 7. That's Resi 7's doors. That's Resi 7's inventory box. Those were fresh to me with Remake 2. So I really do feel, because Capcom are determined now to release a new Resi game every year and a half, that they're like Kellogg's cornflakes, completely bland and void of taste. And as fun as they are, they don't have an identity as much as they used to. And they also feel budget. Remake 2, I know some people will find this weird, but I've said it a few times. Remake 2 feels like a budget title to me, not an indie title. It still feels like it was made by a big company, but it doesn't feel like it was given the budget or the talent to make the game. It doesn't. It has major issues, some that are very obvious. I don't know why they're in the game. They could be easily patched out, and The reflections alone are destroyed. I don't know how you can release a game where the reflections don't work. Shattered glass all over the ground. It's absurd. RE3 looks like it was made by an even lesser team and plays like it. It's Looney Tunes, enemies falling from the sky from rooftops on higher difficulties. Absurdly awful color scheme. The whole thing's just nonsense. The perspective of cars in their size and height, everything's just thrown out of whack if you look at them. They look like Hot Wheel cars in the police garage. You know, a 5'4" Claire couldn't even fit in them if she tried. So there's a lot of minor issues that would have been ironed out with a bigger budget and 6 months of polish. And that's excluding the fact that the story itself is filled with plot holes and it is nonsense. Having said that, of course, Remake 2 is still an amazing game. Remake 3 has great voice acting, and they expanded upon the characters in a lot of ways. Everyone loves Nikolai now. I've always liked Nikolai, but Nikolai's like amazing in Remake 3. Everyone's like, I want Nikolai back for a future Resident Evil because that guy was awesome. So it's not entirely dire. But having said all of what I said, to sum up, Resident Evil 8 looks like it is going to be bland with fun elements to a degree. Now, they mentioned puzzles. That white dude that works for Capcom in the US did mention puzzles. He's like, we're going to have puzzles. The showcase showed no puzzles. Now, it is a showcase, not a demo. Just showing you the mansion, looking around. It's a showcase, so maybe that's intentional. But what it did show me, forget that for a second. Just say, going off the history of what the franchise is like. Remake 3, for instance. I was worried up until release there was going to be no puzzles. And there was like 2 in the entire game. And I got stuck for 20 minutes on the first one. But Resident Evil 8 showcase how you walking around, picking up keys, walking back, opening doors. There's like, that happened maybe 4 times. You pick up like an eyeball, a key here, a key there. You picked up a pliers, and that's it. There was nothing in the way. No way to open a door, like using technical know-how. No puzzle, no strategy. You just walk backwards, pick up the key, open a door. Again, showcase. But going off the history with Remake 3, I am not confident that that isn't going to be the way 8 is going to be. So I'm expecting 8 to be a shoot 'em up with very, very light to non-existent puzzles and exploration, and I'm not excited for it. I don't have a lot of faith in the current Resident Evil brand. People are saying Capcom is back. I think Capcom is at risk of being more stale now than they ever have been. As bad as Resident Evil 5 is as a Resident Evil game, best co-op game I've ever played. Mercenaries mode, best add-on, DLC, whatever, extra game you want to call it, I've ever played in my life. Mercenaries, Ori 5, Ori 4, and maybe even Ori 6, fantastic. People love Ori 6 Mercenaries. And more importantly, all those games had a distinct feeling. The Resident Evil community is very beloved. Hey console, the Resident Evil community is, as a streamer, I've seen so many communities come and go. MGS community's trash, Tekken's trash, so many communities are just annoying, garbage. Devil May Cry is worthless as a community on Twitch. Anytime you talk to them, you feel like putting a gun in your mouth. Resident Evil, awesome community. Fantastic community. I love streaming Resi because I know when new people show up, they're most likely going to be cool. And what we talk about is how every Resident Evil game, what's your favorite, what's your worst, whatever. Every Resident Evil game has its own flavor. I'm about to play Revelations 2 for the very first time in my life. And I'm guaranteeing you, I'm going to come out of that going, this is unique to me in one way or another. That it's going to stand out. I don't feel that from modern Resident Evil anymore. As bad as Resident Evil 6 is, it still feels like Resident Evil 6. You know, it doesn't feel like 5. It doesn't feel like Remake 2. It doesn't feel like 1. It doesn't feel like Code Veronica. None of the games to me feel like those games. Resident Evil 1 feels like 1, 2 feels like 2, 3 feels like 3, and so on. 2, Remake 2, unique. Remake 3, wannabe Remake 2. And from what I'm seeing of Resident Evil 8, I'm not sure it's going to feel any different. And I feel like that's going to carry over to Remake 4. Now, regarding Remake 4, let me light this back up. Regarding Remake 4, I don't think that even if Capcom were on top form, Remake 4 would be as good as OG RE4. That is lightning in a bottle. I don't think that game can be topped or matched. I think the original Resident Evil 4 could be improved upon with some edits here and there, especially the mic section with the helicopters. But I don't think it can be remade by a new team and stand up to the heights that the original did. I feel it's going to be shorter. I feel it's going to be a giant copy and paste job from Resident Evil 8 and whatever that brings. It's going to not feel unique. It's not going to be able to replicate the characters or the artistic look of the original game. It's going to feel like a very bog standard but enjoyable video game. That's how I feel. I'm gonna come away from Resident Evil Remake 4 going, that was very enjoyable, but that's all I can say about it. I don't think it's going to be it's going to be forgotten. It's going to be like Remake 3, where it gets forgotten and everyone just goes right back to the original Resident Evil 3. Now, I'm not saying I think it's going to be as bad as Remake 3, which is a god-awful video game, but I do think it's going to be an afterthought, and that be the end of that. And people will be like, when's the next remake of Remake 4? 10 years from now. So that's my feelings on Resident Evil 8 after the event, where they put more or just as much focus in selling a statue of Chris Redfield and PvP game add-on and t-shirts or whatever the hell they're selling, as they did showcasing Resident Evil 8 and talking about assets that are clearly going to be transferred into Resident Evil 4 Remake. Resident Evil feels closer to Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed to me these days than it does a individual franchise made with passion and love. As bad as people talk about Resident Evil 5, I feel Resident Evil 5 was very much a passionate game, and that is felt by the community in its memes, in its replay value, in its decade-long talk. People criticize Chris Redfield, but it's with a loving wink, you know? People don't criticize Remake 3 with a loving wink. They say this game's annoying and broken. What could make me like Resident Evil 8? A thick atmosphere, puzzles, actual puzzles, some good puzzles, exploration of a beautiful non-linear castle, good storytelling, and a satisfying amount of gameplay. It's possible, but I am saying wait and see. I'm not saying it's going to suck. I'm saying it's a worry for me that it will suck. And I know how it'll go. The game will come out. I might not like it, and everyone will be like, Chris, this game rocks for the next 7 years. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see. So yeah, count me as someone who's worried for how the game's going to be, and who's not impressed by modern Capcom and does not consider Capcom back simply because Remake 2 is a really good game, you know? Because it's heavily flawed. So I guess that's all I want to talk about. Reverse, that PvP game, yeah. Rumor has it that Remake 4's team is going to be a Division 1 team, meaning it is a main Capcom team that is making it. not the team that made Remake 3. That's how poorly it was received. That is only a rumor that I read yesterday. So if you care about rumors, I don't, but just throwing it out there in case it does turn out to be true. A Division 1 working on Resi Remake 4 is a bit more hope. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna go play Revelations 2 first time, and hopefully I can come away from this game going, hey, that may not be classic Resident Evil, but it's unique and I enjoyed it. Because that's something I can't say about modern Resident Evil outside of Remake 2. I guess that's it. For those on YouTube, follow on Twitch, links below. Like and subscribe, or become a patron and get your name at the beginning of every video I make. And I'll see y'all later. Bye.